In the last year, I have built a combined audience of over 100,000 people and created a six-figure business as a coach. But before that, I was a professional Taekwondo athlete. I was incredibly young to have a fifth-degree black belt. I got to teach people all around the world virtually in my first business. I was recognized more than a handful of times on the streets for my ability to kick really fast, kick really precisely, and have insane flexibility. And yet, my current audience has no idea that I'm even able to pick my leg up above my ankles because I have completely rebranded my life over the last few years. And I remember when I wanted to transition out of Taekwondo feeling so scared that I had put so much into that I was going to completely throw it all away for something that maybe won't even work out. Could I even replicate the success that I had found in Taekwondo? But I want all of you listening to this, all of you thinking that you want to make this life transition, you want to do something completely different, you're tired of being perceived as this certain type of person, but you feel like you're trapped in this prison of other people's perceptions of you and your perception of yourself, that you can't take that jump, that on the other side of you deciding to take that leap, on the other side of you deciding to completely become somebody different is your highest self. You have the ability to change who you are at any point in time, even when it feels scary. And the thing that I have learned the most is that typically changing other people's minds about who we are is actually the easy part. It's changing our own perception of who we are. It's removing these labels that we've used to define ourselves for so long that typically stops us from being able to achieve this rebrand or accomplish this life transition in our lives. So, in episode 6 of Socially Unaware, hi, welcome back. I want to share with you 7 of the biggest perspective shifts that I had that allowed me to completely rebrand my life, be perceived completely differently, and live closer to who it is that I've always dreamed of being. So for me with Taekwondo, what happened is that when I turned around 24 years old, I kind of had this epiphany where I realized that this was going to be a dead end for me. My body was not going to be able to do what it could do and what it still can do in 20 years from now. And the skills that I've learned in Taekwondo aren't directly transferable to another career path, at least in a traditional sense. And so I kind of was having this spiral where I realized this wasn't going to be something I could do forever. And it's not that anything that you choose to do needs to be what you do forever, but I saw no path to go anywhere else. I saw no path to move closer to who it is that I wanted to be. And I also realized that I had built this audience of people who were impressed by what I could do with my body. And what I've really wanted my entire life was to be known for my voice, to have a voice that mattered, to have a voice that could resonate with people and inspire people and get them through their day and challenge them to live in their highest purpose. I got my degree in psychology because I love the human mind. I love humans, even though they do frustrate me sometimes. I love seeing people thrive. I love seeing people live in their purpose. I love seeing people talk about what it is that they love to do. And I wanted to spend my life helping as many people see what it's like to live in their purpose as possible. And I just didn't see that outlet with Taekwondo. But I remember when I wanted to go through this rebrand, I looked at and listened to podcasts just like this one, looking for good information that would help me with this transition. And the information out there was very lackluster. And so I had to go forth with really no blueprint on how to make this rebrand. And luckily, I was able to get it onto the other side. But I want to limit the frustrations and the constant mental spiraling that I had to go through by sharing some of the biggest tips that I've had for with you. So let's get started. The first thing that you have to understand is that you have more time than you think you do. If you are listening to this, most of my audience is between the ages of 18 and 35. But even if you're in your 40s, even if you're in your 50s, you have decades of your life left. Are you really going to spend the next few decades allowing yourself to stay stuck in something that no longer serves you? I know you probably feel like you've given so much of your time into this thing, and that by doing something completely different, you're throwing all of that away. But that is simply not true. Even if the thing that you're doing doesn't directly translate into what you want to do next, you have probably learned some really valuable skills that are going to help you in that next endeavor. Like I in Taekwondo learned to be disciplined and show up for myself every day. I learned what it meant to develop a skill. I learned what it meant to teach because I taught Taekwondo, which helped me as a coach. I learned how to create content. I learned how to edit. I learned how to make something that people wanted to actually watch. And all of those were incredibly transferable comparable to the thing that I'm doing right now. So know that by deciding to make a drastic life change, you're not throwing away everything you've done before. You don't have to live in this way where the thing that you choose to do now has to be the thing that you do forever. That thing you've been doing is still part of your life, and it was a beautiful chapter. It wasn't a waste. Did you not enjoy the thing that you were doing for the time that you were doing it? You've simply just gotten to a place where you decided that that's not what you want to do anymore. That doesn't eliminate the value of what you've done before. It just means that it's time for you to move something somewhere different. It's time for you to explore something else, and know that everything that you have learned about yourself in that past journey is going to transition into where you are going next. There's something called the sunken cost fallacy, and it is defined as the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. So this probably applies to a lot of you right now. You feel like you've invested too much, you're in too deep, you can't make this change. But I'm going to settle this conflict for you right now by letting you know that this desire to rebrand your life is never going to go away. You have already subconsciously in your mind made up the fact that this is no longer for you, that this isn't what it is that you want to do. And you can choose either now or in 5 years to come to terms with the fact that this is a dead end for you, because you're not going to be able to continue to see success in this thing you're currently doing once your passion has completely dwindled for it. You are going to eventually get to a place where you have nothing to give to it, and therefore it's going to stop growing. You can't grow a garden that you don't water. And if you're not passionate about watering this garden, it is eventually going to die anyways. So whether you decide right now or in 5 years to finally take that jump, you're going to decide to make that jump at some point. And all you're doing right now by choosing to stay with what's comfortable and what's safe is giving more time into this thing that one day is no longer going to be what you pursue anyways. You're just continuing to give up more of your time when you could simply decide right now that today is the first day that you live a completely different life. And you're going to thank yourself for starting today instead of 5 years from now. Just as I'm sure you wish you had started 2 years ago instead of starting right now. But you cannot get time back from the past, but you can decide to save time in the future. And understand that that fear that you have with making that transition is never going to go away. You simply have to just do it even when you're afraid. The second thing that's going to help you believe that you can completely rebrand your life is understanding that the power was always in you, not the things that you were doing. I did not become really good at Taekwondo because I was blessed by some Taekwondo gods with a magic gene. I was not able to build an audience of 100,000 people because Instagram decided that their algorithm was going to support me directly in my Taekwondo journey. And if I tried to do anything else, they were going to decide that I wasn't good enough for that, and they were going to start suppressing all of my content. Every bit of success that I had in Taekwondo came from the fact that I was smart, I was disciplined, I was passionate, and I was willing to stick with it long enough to be able to see the success that I got with it. And those are skills that I and you can take into any endeavor you move forward. The power of your success has always rested in you. And I think a lot of people are worried when they're making a rebrand in their life. They think that they have to pick the right thing. They say, well, if I'm going to throw everything away, how do I know what the right thing is going to be for me to replicate that success? And I want you to understand that there is no right thing. The right thing is always just choosing to trust in you. Most people can be good at most things. Like, yes, I'm sorry, if you're 50 years old and you want to get into the NFL, might not be a possibility. But most people can do whatever it is that they want right now. It's not about choosing the right thing. It's not the thing that is going to be the right decision that allows you to see success. It's choosing to stick with the thing that you are most passionate about, not the thing that feels the safest, not the thing that feels the most logical, the thing that just lights your soul on the inside, the thing that you could talk about or do for hours on end, even if you weren't getting paid for it, that is going to allow you to use the skills that you have within yourself, use your personality traits, use your unique gifts that you have within you, use the skills that you've developed, and use the things that you've learned about yourself to carry into that endeavor that is going to allow you to see success in whatever it is that you want to choose. So don't allow yourself to get stuck in this state of paralysis where you don't make that transition because you're like, what do I transition to? The key is to just try a bunch of stuff. You may not choose the right thing the first time. You may make the wrong step, but that's okay, because then you know it's the wrong step and you can move forward and do something else. But it's going to probably take you time to figure out what it is that is your thing. But what I always recommend, and this is something my therapist told me, is to follow the glimmers. When you have this thing that sounds exciting, Don't think about where is that going to lead to? What does that mean? What's the likelihood that that can actually make money? What is it that, is how do I logistically fit into this thing? Or, oh, I don't have the skills. I haven't even built any experience in this field. Don't let all of that cloud the spark of inspiration that you had to simply try something. Go try it and see where it leads you. It may lead you to a place you never thought possible. You may develop a whole new skill set. You may get opportunities that you never thought possible. Doors may open for you that you thought would always be locked. Or you might find out, oh, yeah, that wasn't for me. And then and you can go to the next thing. But understand that you are the power. You are the magic. You have what it is that you need to be successful in whatever it is that you want to do, unless you want to be in the NFL at 50. Now, the third thing to think about when it comes to rebranding your life is which route you want to take. There are two traditional routes that you can take when it comes to doing a rebrand. You can decide to build a bridge and try to connect what you used to do with what you want to do next, or you can decide to trash everything and build from a brand new foundation. And I have done both. When I transitioned from Taekwondo into social media coaching, that was a sharp shift. I threw everything away and I fully dedicated myself to becoming this new person because I knew that as long as I had Taekwondo as an element, I would always use it as a crutch. I would always allow it to pull myself back into what's comfortable. So in order for me to do my first rebrand, I had to completely just throw everything away and start from a solid foundation. However, I'm kind of going through a bit of a rebrand now that's a little bit more of connecting a bridge because the last year I worked predominantly and I identified myself as a social media coach. But after working with over 500 people, I've realized that my skills, my strengths relies in personal development and overall life coaching because I've learned that when it comes to the tactics of social media, that's really the easy thing to learn and it's not the thing that ignites my soul. What ignites my soul is building the person because if you build the person, they're going to then know how to go on and learn the skills and the little nitty-gritty things that are really easy to learn. Getting someone to believe in themselves, trust themselves, build the systems that are going to allow them to be consistent, build up who they are and know that there is success on the other side of this leap. Like that is the work that gets me excited, which fits right into the psychology degree that I got during this rebrand into being a social media coach. So that's a bit more of a subtle transition where I'm kind of slowly moving myself that way. This podcast is one way that I'm doing that. I don't talk a lot about direct social media tips. My Instagram is mostly perspective shifts and mindset work rather than creating, different tactics and strategies for social media. And even in my work, I would say I'm kind of working as a hybrid where I approach social media from a mindset perspective and show people how to use their humanity to build an audience. And I'm currently working on building my membership that's going to be a life coaching membership that's designed to hold people accountable, give people the community, and help people build themselves from a mental standpoint rather than directly, here's how to grow on social media. So I've done both and there are benefits to both. So here are the things that you need to think about when deciding which one you're going to go with. First thing to ask yourself is how much does what you are doing currently play into what you want to do next? Are they closely related? Being a social media coach and a life coach, those are pretty close to each other. So it didn't make sense for me to completely abandon everything that I had done because the audience that I wanted to serve is the same and they work well together. They complement each other. And that has allowed this rebrand into being a mindset coach to be pretty smooth and really seamless. The key to this kind of rebrand is for it to almost feel like it was just a natural progression of things. It wasn't something that felt like really a shift at all. It simply just seemed to make sense in the context of who you are and what you do. If your interests are completely different from one another, you're probably going to have a harder time building that bridge. And it's not to say it's impossible, but the most important thing to think about is who is the audience. Like my Taekwondo audience was mostly made up of men, mostly men who were not really focused on their mindset. In fact, because of being one of the only out and proud queer athletes in that space, I actually got quite a bit of violence and hatred and everything in my community. So because I wasn't trying to talk to the same person, I knew I needed to scrap everything over again. Whereas now I'm talking to the same person. I'm just going about my work a little bit differently. And what I do in my work is changing a little bit. So it doesn't make sense for me to abolish everything. So ask yourself, are you talking to the same person or are you trying to talk to somebody completely different? And then another thing to think about is whether or not you're going to be able to see yourself as this new person when you have this past version of you still lingering. So as I said, I was not able to make a bridge, not only because I wasn't talking to the same person, but because I knew I would use my Taekwondo as a crutch. I knew that if I posted a video talking about social media and it didn't do well, I could always go back to what's comfortable and post a Taekwondo video. And that's something that I actually did do for a long time, and it really hindered my progress. For me, in order to see myself as a new person, I needed to completely rebuild myself from the ground up, and that is what worked best for me. So ask yourself, do you still have passion for this thing that you were currently doing, and is that something that you want to integrate into what you're doing right now? Or are you trying to become somebody completely different, and therefore maybe you need to distance yourself from who you were in order to fully embody who you want to be? I also want you to understand that outside metrics are not something that you can rely on during this point in your rebrand. So when I started rebranding myself as a social media coach, I had 10,000 followers on Instagram, and they were my Taekwondo followers. And I oftentimes get asked, if I want to do something different, should I start a new account or should I just use my old account? And the answer is, it doesn't matter. Pick one. But pick one and stick with it. Pick one that you can stick with. So for me, I had decided that I'm completely throwing Taekwondo away for the time being, and that I was going to build that, which meant I needed to understand that I probably wasn't going to get a lot of views on my videos. And that's not a reflection on whether or not I'm good at this thing or whether or not I will find success in it. It's just a matter of, you've built an audience of people who know you for this one thing, and you're posting about something completely different. You're talking to an entirely new group of people. So you can't expect the metrics to be the same. You're basically starting at ground zero. So you cannot allow the time where you post a video that aligns with who you want to be and it not performing well to define how good you are at that new thing, or define whether or not this path is right for you. You have to understand that people followed you or people know you for one thing, and if you decide to post something completely new, it's probably not going to get traction for a while. It took about 4 months before the new style of content that I was posting really gained traction, and I was losing followers every single day because these were people who knew me for Taekwondo. And it was really humbling, but eventually it just got to a point where I was like, I have nothing to lose. So I just kept going and I kept going, and now my audience is bigger than ever. So whether or not you decide to start a new profile or start a new business completely, or just completely start fresh, or you decide to build off of what's already there, or and stick with the account you have, you can do either, but stick with it regardless, knowing that you probably aren't going to see success right away. You have to be able to validate that you are good at what it is that you're doing now, and that you have something to say to the world in this new version of yourself, which leads me to my next tip. Take the time to actually develop the skills needed to be good on this new path. Now, whether that's transitioning into a different full-time job, or whether it's becoming a influencer or a content creator, or whether that's starting a new business, or whether it's just about posting a new type of content or a new type of art, make sure that you are actually good at the thing that you're transitioning to. And if you're not super competent in it, make sure that you take the time to become competent in it. The reason, in part, that you found success in what you're currently doing is because you spent enough time at it to become really good at it so that you could see the results. When I did Taekwondo, I wasn't able to do vertical kicks and kick 100 times in 30 seconds and, do all of these crazy tricks that I was able to do. I started with a front kick, a very basic kick, and it took years of developing those skills. And it probably won't take you years to develop this new skill, because you probably have learned a lot about how to learn new skills from the first thing that you're doing. But understand that it is an essential step to make sure that you actually take the time to dedicate yourself to becoming good at the thing that you want to do next. If you want to be a content creator, make sure you're good at editing. Make sure you know how to structure a video. Make sure you're a good storyteller. If you want to become a writer when you were a fitness instructor before, don't go straight into trying to write a book or publish a bestseller. Just start by making sure that you write something every day. Developing the skill is incredibly important. A lot of people want the title title of being the thing without having the substance to back it up. And people are going to sniff that out, and your content or your new job or your, new business probably isn't going to perform very well. And you're going to use that as a reason to validate that you should have just stuck with what it is that you were doing before. When in reality, what you needed to understand is that no, you just need to get as good as what you want to do next as you are the thing that you're doing currently. Tip number 5 is to build your community in your new space. This is going to help validate that this is who you are now. This is going to help you see yourself as this new person, because you're going to have friends and colleagues and people who are doing the same thing who you are connected with. I remember when I was making a transition into social media coaching and I started posting content about it, it was incredibly isolating. So I started DMing people, I started commenting on other people's posts, I started replying to things on threads and building friendships with other people who were already in the industry so that I felt like I was on an even playing field as them. And this is something that I think was incredibly valuable to making this rebrand, because it allowed me to see myself as one of them. When I saw that other people who were successful in this field thought that my ideals were really strong, thought that I had a lot of value to say, that helped me feel more confident that I could share these things externally in my content. That helped me believe that there was going to be clients and people out there who would resonate with my message. A lot of people go straight into trying to validate themselves by posting content and getting a lot of views, or showing up and making a lot of sales right off the bat. But having a core community of people who are also in the field and also successful, see the value in you, is one of the most important and valuable things that you can have to validate yourself in this new path that you're on. Tip number 6 is to embody this new version of yourself by becoming a teacher or a leader. I actually learned this when I started becoming really good at Taekwondo. My instructor actually made me a teacher when I came to him and told him that I wanted to be an incredibly talented athlete, because he told me that the best way to learn something is to teach it, because you have to not only be able to make sense of it for yourself, but you have to be able to communicate it to the point where you could help somebody else understand it. And that's going to help you speak to a level of detail and nuance and in a way that really resonates with people, so that you can feel more confident in your skill set. There are a lot of people who are really good at what it is that they are doing, but they don't know how to communicate that to somebody else, and therefore they don't really know why they're good at something. And that can create insecurity and imposter syndrome within yourself, and it can be difficult to see yourself as this leader in this space if you don't understand what it is that made you successful in it, or that helped you along this journey. Having to describe the mechanic of a kick, how to develop power, how to develop speed, how to develop precision, made me faster, more powerful, and more precise, because it gave me the ability to coach myself. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with. When I work with a lot of people, they don't know how to view their content from an outside perspective. They're just posting and posting, and they're doing maybe what a lot of other coaches tell them to do, but they're not able to describe why they made the decisions that they made, why they edited something a certain way, why they decided to describe something in a certain way. They just go on autopilot and keep putting stuff out there. And that's why they get so insecure about whether or not they're actually good at what it is that they want to do, or whether or not they're ever going to find success in it, is because they can't describe their process. So one of the best skills that you can have as somebody who is wanting to rebrand yourself is to become incredibly observant of the things that are allowing you to have the small and big wins that you have, and paying close attention to what leads to a success versus what leads to a failure, and being able to catch your subconscious thoughts that allowed you to have an epiphany moment, and using those to teach into somebody else so they become something that's solidified, so that you now know how to explain that to somebody else and how to explain it to yourself if you're ever having a moment where maybe you need that reminder. And my last tip is to do whatever you have to do to get your first win, because listen, while I always believe it's most important to be able to validate yourself, in the context of moving into something and rebranding your career, I think having a level of external validation where you know that somebody will invest their money or invest their time into your new skill set is incredibly important when it comes to seeing yourself as this new person. And this could look like many things. It could mean getting a new job in your field. It could mean having your first video do numbers. It could mean that you got your first sale in your business. It could mean that you got your first client. It could be defined as many different things, but whatever that win looks like for you, find it and do whatever you have to do to get it. Because once you have that first win, that is all you're going to need to know that you can find success in this field. Once you've done it once, you'll have confidence that you can do it again. The hardest thing is getting that first one. So if you want a new job in a new field, Do yourself a favor and apply to as many jobs as possible. Write cover letters for every single one. Reach out to the CEO or the hiring manager on LinkedIn and introduce yourself. Like, do whatever you have to do to get that job. If you want to be a freelancer, start a Fiverr, start an Upwork, do a lot of email outreach, like post content, whatever you have to do to get that first person in the door to validate who it is that you want to be. If you want to be an influencer, post a lot of content, reach out to brands, do whatever you have to do. Maybe even take on a free gig the first time that you work with a brand, a gifted campaign, so that you can validate that somebody wanted to send you product or pay you money in order for you to create content for them. That first win is so essential, because once you get a taste of that first win, you're going to have a much easier time shedding that old version of yourself and seeing yourself in this new light. Once I had my first social media client, I spent that hour with them and I realized that no, I actually am really good at this and I actually am really good at teaching this. That's all I needed to build a six-figure business. That's all I needed to do $30,000 in my first month of business. And without that first win, I might have still been stuck in wondering if this was for me. I might have turned around and shifted. So do whatever you have to do to get that first win as quickly as possible. To recap, you are capable of deciding that you are going to be somebody completely different at any point in time. In fact, it's a natural progression of things. I know you have been defined by these certain things and you have worn those things as a badge of honor for a long time, and you have kept yourself imprisoned to embodying those things because it maybe has earned you a level of respect, a level of money, a level of feeling of fulfillment, feeling that you are good at something. But know that you can take all of that you've had before and rebuild it again at any point in time, because at the end of the day, you are at the center of every good thing that has ever happened to you. You are the magic. You are the person who is going to be able to build success in whatever it is that you want. You were not successful at the thing that you're doing now. You did not have wins or build skills in the things that you were doing now because you just so happened to be lucky enough to find the thing that you could be good at. You could be good at just about anything you set your mind to if you simply are willing to let go of what was in order to see what can be. If you're willing to let go of what was good in order to see what was great. And that is something that you can decide to do today. And know that rebranding yourself is not something that happens overnight. These feelings about yourself, these definitions that you've had of yourself, these things that you've been able to accomplish were something that you've probably spent a lot of time building. But know that it probably won't take as long this next time. And living a life fully in your purpose is worth anything. And I am living proof of that. I would have spent another 5 years in limbo doing what I needed to do to rebrand myself if it meant that I could be living the life that I am living right now. And know that you don't always have to completely throw away what was in order to exist in what can be. It can be a slow process where you have this section of the internet or this section of your life where you're building something that is allowing you to start to see yourself as this new person while still maintaining what it is that you're currently doing, because maybe it's paying your bills. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to see that result. You probably wish you'd started 5 years earlier, but you can decide to start today so that you're not saying in 5 years you would wish you had started today. So go out there and decide that you get to define who it is that you want to be as a human being, that you have one life, and that you have to be the one at the end of the day who lives with the decision to live in regret if you choose not to fulfill this purpose that you have. And know that you will make this transition at some point in time because you've already decided that this thing that you're currently doing does not fulfill you. So whether you decide to do it right now or whether you decide to do it in 5 years is totally up to you. But all you're doing right now by avoiding this thing that you want to do and remaining comfortable is just investing more wasted time into something that you've already decided is a dead end. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of Socially Unaware. If it resonated with you, please help by leaving a like on the video and subscribing and hitting the bell icon if you're on YouTube, and leaving a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you're listening to this through as an audio listener. And again, I just want to say thank you to all of the support of this podcast. I'm amazed by how many messages and how much support I get of people telling me that this is the only podcast that they've ever listened to consistently, that this is what they look forward to on their Monday. That's a really humbling feeling, and I'm grateful to have this audience, and I'm grateful that I chose to rebrand my life so that I could be in a position where these are the people that I get to talk to. So thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next episode.